This week's podcast is brought to you by Curry State Bank. Curry State Bank is personalized banking in your neighborhood. With locations in Curry and Okabena, as well as online banking, Curry State Bank makes it easy to meet your banking needs. Stop in one of the offices today to let them help you meet your banking goals. And happy holidays from Curry State Bank.
You're listening to another edition of the Headlight Hot Seat podcast. My name is Per. I am your host this afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. We're going to go a little bit off the rails for this podcast. We have a very special guest today. You may know her well. I know her maybe too well. It's Tara Brandl, my girlfriend slash business partner slash confidant slash best friend. Thank you for joining me today, Tara.
Thanks. I'm excited to be part of this recording in this room I don't go in.
Tara's nervous. She usually just does the ads, the commercials at the beginning and the end, but I'm nervous too because I'm not really good at this. But we're going to do our best today to entertain you for the next half hour or so. Let's start with some, and I'll same as my other guests, we'll go through some biographical information on both of us. If you can put up with it for the next couple minutes. So Tara, ladies first.
Oh, so biographical on me overall or just in the newspaper business?
Let's go overall. We have to tell the listeners where you graduated high school from.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So I graduated from RTR. Go Knights, which I know is a point of contention living in Tracy. And I am a fan of the Panthers still, but I was born and raised in RTR Knight. I went to school in Russell, then Ruthven, then back to Russell, then finished in Tyler, and now none of the schools I attended exist because they built a brand new school. I'm a graduate of RTR, and then I attended Southwest State University, now Southwest Minnesota State University, and I graduated with a degree in radio and television, so this should be way more natural for me than it is, and public relations with a minor in marketing. And wanted to do the TV side and then decided that that's not what I wanted to do. And when I was a senior, I was taking an advertising and news writing class from Dana Yost, the editor at the Marshall Independent at the time. And he said, I think you would be really good for this open position that we have in sales. So,
In other words, they were desperate.
oh,
What?
They knew talent when they saw
Okay,
it.
yeah, I should have said that.
So I started as a sales rep there straight out of high school, or I started straight out of college, I should say, and then became advertising manager. I left the industry for a very short time to work in finance at Action Sports. I liked the job and the people I worked with, but I realized that that was not my forte and that I would much rather work with more people and being able to be out and about. So I went back to the Independent as advertising manager again and stayed there until we bought this paper. I have 3 kids. Brady is a sophomore at the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers. And Ben is a senior at Marshall High School and will be attending Iowa State next year.
Go Cyclones.
Go Cyclones. And Natalie is an 8th grader at Holy Redeemer School and will then go to Marshall High School next year.
Go Tigers.
Yes.
Can't believe I just said that.
I have that recorded.
Ugh, yuck. Mine is short and sweet. I was in the newspaper business since I was 18 years old. I did not graduate from SSU because I still don't have my diploma, and I never will.
Hey, you're only 2 classes short.
Going back to school, the longer you wait, I've heard, and I can attest to, the harder it is to go back. I came to the Headlight in 2017, my hometown newspaper, dream come true. And now, for some reason, Tara and I own the place and the business, and we're going from there. And speaking of going from there, we'll get to that later, actually why we're doing this podcast together. We actually don't do a lot of things together, so this is kind of fun. So I want to tell a little bit of a backstory here.
What about your personal life in your bio?
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Daughter Olivia, 23, her and her boyfriend Devin bought a house, which is nicer than mine. She makes more money than I do as a special ed teacher in the Watertown School District, which is becoming very challenging for her, but I've told her if you can get through a year with these kids, you can do anything. And other teachers in Tracy concur with that because it's hard for her, but she's learning a lot about herself.
It's a difficult job.
That's pretty cool. Yes, it is. And that's something that at that age, kids have to, well, I call her kid, but they have to find out about themselves and learn about themselves. And there's going to be bumps on the road. It's how you deal with those bumps, I think, that shapes who you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Olivia, I forgot about you.
You didn't never forget about
No,
her.
I know. So back to what I was saying. A couple months ago, I approached her with an idea that I could do a solo podcast. And I wanted to, I had a rough day at section cross country with people driving, people getting in my way when I was shooting photos, and I was pretty upset about it. And I pitched the idea to Tara, and
I had the same reaction.
about 5 seconds later, she said, no. Who's going to want to listen to you complain for a half hour? And I said, well, I could do it in a humorous way. I could have fun with it. And then she thought about it for another couple seconds and said, no. You know who calls the shots around here. It's pretty much Tara.
Come on. I just didn't want, you're just such a positive person that I didn't want people to think that you just were negative all the time.
I think it would have been really great. And it's still open for discussion, I think, someday.
Yeah, we can discuss it.
We do appreciate all the guests that have joined us. It's been really fun getting to know them. For the most part, they've all enjoyed doing the podcast, which is still relatively new. But it's something that we started, earlier this year. And I think I'd like Tara to tell us why we started this, please.
So
Because I still don't know because I'm not good at it.
So I am very active in the Minnesota Newspaper Association, and one of the big benefits of that is really getting to see how papers are ran and changes that they're doing, things that keep them relevant in the industry on all levels, from small newspapers like ours that are 2.5 people, to large companies such as Forum Communications, who owns multiple papers across Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota. So I get to see a lot of different trends and things, and we're all aware of the digital society that we live in. You will never be able to tell me that reading a newspaper on your phone is better than holding that newspaper in your hand, because that is horrible for your eyes. But that's just, I don't prefer to get my news that way. But our industry has changed, and the way that people get their news has changed. A lot of people like to stream podcasts and things when they're driving. And one of the biggest things for local newspapers is not only to bring the local news, but to connect communities and reach our local readers, listeners, audience. And you can generalize that audience however you'd like, to bring our audience the news of our area. And a lot of larger newspapers have started doing podcasts. My kids all listen to podcasts. I'm sure Olivia listens to podcasts as well. It wasn't something that we did. I like podcasts, but I like to listen to murder mystery podcasts, which is maybe a little bit scary for
Books
you.
on tape do not count.
No, I listen to like Dateline and stuff. I always say that if Pear really makes me mad, they'll never find his body. But
She's got a lot of good ideas. If the worst.
no, I would never be like that. But that's the type of podcast I listen to. But local podcasts that really talk about what's going on in your community. And we do amazing articles and we cover a lot of news. But a lot of those interviews, when you read this story, there's 5 or 6 quotes. And there's so much more talked about, and that conversation that happens between you and the people you're interviewing, people don't get to hear that. People aren't privy to that. And by starting our Headlight Hot Seat podcast, we opened up a whole new avenue and a way for people to connect, a way for people in our community to connect. I think it's really awesome when we have the coaches in prior to each season, and they can talk about their expectations, what they're excited about, what they see for the year. Because we still will run our preview stories, but those preview stories maybe have 5 quotes.
No. Let me correct you. They have maybe 1 quote. And I talked to this with Carl and Derek Ashbaugh and Cruzy too. My questions, my typical questionnaire has years coaching, record last year, kids lost to graduation, kids coming back, and then I really wanted them to get into the season. And none of them do. And Carl said, well, he appreciates the email, but they don't have time. And the podcast has really served a purpose for me in that the coaches can go into what I really want. So it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. And the previews, if anyone's noticed, have been a little longer this year because the coaches expound on their thoughts more. Sometimes a little too much, but there's never such thing as too much. They're really great, and it really helps me foster a better story when I do a preview.
Right. And that's what I think the big part of the podcast is that we're doing this. We're connecting, we're having conversations. Stories are that they're one-sided. You're reading what you've written, and maybe we can put a voice to the different people that you're quoting, whether it's a single person or multiple people in a story. But the conversation that you have in the podcast is just a completely different way, but we're still bringing news, we're still bringing events, we're still helping cover the community and connect our community together. So we started this podcast towards the end of July, so we're almost 6 months in.
And I'm not quitting my day job.
Yeah,
I stink at this.
you don't stink at this. That's the best thing about podcasts is it's really not a crazy thing. And we joke that there's people that do this in their basement. Kids that do things like this. We're probably not going to be the next YouTube stars. I don't think anybody's looking for us to start streaming video with it. I think we'll stick with just the audio. But I think it's been a really great opportunity to expand what we offer as a local newspaper that maybe you don't get other places.
And you have to, I think we both very well realize that you have to adapt and pivot, which is my favorite word, in this day and age because, yes, our subscriptions are strong and people love the paper. But if you just stay status quo, you're not going to advance as a business.
We constantly are changing. We can't do things the way that we did them last year or 10 years ago in this industry. The industry has changed dramatically just from the time that you and I entered it. And we plan on being around for a lot longer. And so we have to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success within the industry and that we can continue to be part of the Tracy community and the Tracy area and doing all the things that a local newspaper should be doing.
How important do you think it is? I promise this wouldn't be a Q&A, but I got to ask, to be, when you say part of the community, let's say we have 20 businesses in town, 30, whatever the number, but a lot of people don't know the people who own them or work there. We can't afford to do that, can we?
No. I think that, especially with local newspapers, we have to have a face in the community. I think one of the things that have been lost, and this is, personally for me, I feel like one of the things that's been lost in our small towns is that the businesses remaining small, locally owned. A lot of things have, become franchised or things like that. And so when you have a local business, that's such a big deal. But for us, it's not just being a locally owned business, but it's being a face of the business and being involved in the community because everything that we do, whether it's the news coverage side, whether it's subscribers or advertisers, we are intricately involved with our community. We need them to know who we are because that's how they trust us to either give us the information we need for a story or trust us with their advertising dollars. Everything that we do is built on trust. Our entire industry is built on trust. And we earn that trust by being visible and being part of the community, being involved, not just to show up and say, you want to buy an ad, or show up and be like, okay, well, I'm here to take some pictures of the basketball team. Like, we have to be part of the community that we're covering in order to build that trust, and that's what makes a strong newspaper.
Let's briefly go over the history with the paper. Tara and I came here in 2017, and Seth Schmidt was my boss, and Seth and Jim Coyle owned the paper. And then they were kind of getting to the age and the point in their life where they wanted to back off a little bit retire. I'll just say it. They wanted to sell the paper. And it was very serendipitous how all this happened, that I came back to my hometown to work for my hometown newspaper. And then I twisted Tara's arm and said, hey, we have an opportunity here. Seth and Jim want to sell. What do you think? So looking back, how has it been going, do you think? Surprises, lessons learned, dealing with COVID, and I mean, we've been
through the roller coaster, I think, a lot more than we planned when we took over. Anytime you make an investment or a commitment to purchase a business, it's scary. I mean, if you don't have some kind of fear, then your ego's a little bit too big to be a business owner, because you can be humbled often in any business, but really in this business every day. Like, I think I'm having a great day, or I'll joke with you and say, hey, we're at this much percentage for advertising, or I did a really great job on this special section. And then the insurance bill comes in, or somebody hits a deer with the van and we have to replace it. Pair.
Or someone complains and gets mad at us
Yes,
for
or-
something we wrote or a mistake, and then mistakes, for me, they last the whole next week. I don't get over them until the next paper comes.
And sometimes it's not even anything we can do or that we did do. So I think that was kind of shocking to me, like just how much the roller coaster ride can happen. It was crazy to hit COVID 1 month short of being business owners for a year. I would say that was scarier to me than anything. But I look back at it now, and we worked so hard during that time to maintain our business, to stay on top of everything, to make sure we were taking care of employees, getting the paper out. We always joke about, we joke and then we applaud ourselves that we had a sports page every day or every week. I mean, we never didn't run sports just because sports weren't happening. And so we put in so much work. And I think that it was, I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise because that's not the right words, but I'm not really sure how to say it. It taught us to work really hard and to take what is thrown at us and do what needs to be done to make it a successful business.
I think it made us stronger in a way. Mm-hmm. And I equate it to my daughter, who, if you can get through a year of this, and we got through a year of this,
Yeah.
the rest, it won't seem easy.
No.
But it'll be if we can do 2020, 2021, we can do anything.
Yeah. It's as a teacher, every year that you teach, you build new skills and you become a better teacher, especially in tough classrooms like special education and stuff. You learn new ways of doing things that maybe you didn't think of before because you had to. And that's exactly what happened to us. We had to create new ways of doing things because the old ways would not have kept us afloat. And I think that opened us up to being a lot more accepting of, pivot, as you like to say. Mm-hmm. Well, that wasn't what we expected, or, this is not what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's a big part with the industry. Every single day is different. If you ever want a job that you never do the same thing twice, this is it.
And I think COVID, it was a curveball, but I think I'm going to, pat ourselves on the back. I think we hit it out of the park. And it was tough for some papers didn't recover.
No.
Some businesses didn't recover.
Yeah.
Some closed down, never reopened.
Yeah. And I think a big thing for us during that time was we really had to put aside, which again was scary, but we did things for the restaurants, special group advertisements to just with their to-go orders and their phone numbers. And we really had to put community before ourselves and maybe sacrifice, we put ourselves out there. We were attending things that many people weren't because of COVID.
Stupid masks on.
Yeah, we had to deal with all of that. And we had to put our community above ourselves and our families because that was important. And I think that showed us how to handle those difficult and intense situations.
Good times. So one paper, it was not enough for us. As many of you listening know, that Tara and I have purchased the assets of 3 Lincoln County papers, like Benton Valley Journal, Hendricks Pioneer, and the Tyler Tribute. This was kind of a process, maybe, 6 years in the making, roughly, when the person we're buying the papers from, also an M&A member along with Tara, approached her and said, hey, you bought the Headlight, what about buying my papers?
Yeah.
And Tara, you probably laughed a little bit, you chuckled.
I think
What was
the
your
first, we officially took over ownership of the Tracy Area Headlight Herald on April 1st. And that June, we had our summer board meetings for M&A, and Chuck Hunt is a past M&A president. They come to those meetings. So it was about 3 months after we had taken ownership, and he said, so when are you going to buy my papers? Which is a joke for us. We can't, it was fun because I did graduate from RTR. Nick, his son, was a year older than me. Carmen, his daughter-in-law, graduated with me. I've known the Hunt family all throughout school. He was the pair for Tyler growing up. He was at every concert, every event, that sort of thing. And when he asked me that, I laughed and I said, let me just figure out what I'm doing here because, I'm 3 months in. And then COVID hit and we would kind of bring it up here and there when I would see him a few times a year, but then, you kind of backed off because the world was crazy for everyone. And then he kind of started bringing it up a little bit more and a little bit more. And at first I was like, yeah, no way. Because this was too much. I couldn't imagine expanding our business. And I think one of it was I personally didn't have the confidence in myself and us as business owners yet. I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. A lot of work goes into owning a business, and it's hard when you have kids. You're already, in our industry, we're already missing a lot. Mm-hmm. Being a parent and the parent guilt is hard. And so, yes, it was a 6 year in the making, but as Chuck and Pam have gotten to the point where they're ready to also retire from owning business, he still works as an editor in a different newspaper 3 hours away. So that's really hard. I couldn't imagine trying to do this from three.
No, same. And I don't know how he did it or why he would want to, but he was persistent. Mm-hmm. And that joke, that kind of turned into a running joke, and then it turned a little more serious, and then she came to me and threw it at me, and I probably reacted the same way she did with Chuck.
You did. You're like, not happening.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Nope.
And I think the big thing for us, and I think a big part of purchasing, is Tracy is your hometown. You love Tracy. You live, eat, and breathe Tracy. You care so deeply for everything Tracy. So when I say like, hey, let's add 3 more papers, we're not naive, and we know that it will take time and energy, and that is not something you're willing to have any sacrifice on our paper here. And I think that was a big thing for you is no, Tracy is my town. This area, I care about this area. I'm not going to miss something here because I'm running to Hendricks. And I think that was a big thing is how would we be able to do that?
And we want to be 100% crystal clear. The 4 papers are still going to exist independently.
Yes.
We're not combining the papers or closing papers. I think there's been some talk around town, in the Lincoln County towns too, that, this is going to be one paper now. Kind of like the Independent covers their area. We would do the same thing, but that's, it couldn't be farther from the truth. They each have their own brand. They each have very good employees.
They each have their own identity. I don't think that they can, it's not feasible right now to, like that just wouldn't be good for their communities. And I think that's another big part of it is community journalism is so important. And I think for our readers and listeners and audience and advertisers, everybody here in Tracy, in the Tracy area, Curry, Ballatin, Milroy, Walnut Grove, they're not going to see a change. They're not going to see a change in their product. If they do, then we've failed at our jobs.
We weren't in this. We didn't do this to close papers. On the contrary, we do this to keep them vibrant and alive.
Right, and that's the other side of it is. So yeah, you're still going to be here busting your butt and keeping up with all this stuff. I may not be in the office here as much, but Lake Benton is still going to have a paper, and someone's still going to be covering their city council meetings, and someone's still going to be writing about the amazing things that are happening in town, and celebrating their schools and their accomplishments, and reporting on tough news too. Because the reporting on the tough news, especially in a small town, is one of the hardest things. And if you don't have a trusted news source there, then you literally are leaving it to the rumors of Facebook. Mm-hmm. And that's when misinformation gets out there. That's when things are wrong, and it's that much harder for those involved in any type of hardship or tragedy,
We try not to cherry pick because it makes us look bad if we don't cover this or don't do something on that, and people ask us, why wasn't this in the paper? Mm-hmm. My goal is to avoid people saying that to me.
Yeah.
Because that's a question I don't want to hear. And then the catch is, well, if you do it, and then someone's going to be mad that you did it.
Right.
It's a no-win.
I think it's a big part is we are here to report the news, and with the purchase of these 3 newspapers, there's 2 aspects to it. In my world, we're keeping community journalism in all 3 of those communities. And that's so important for each of those communities. They're each going to maintain their paper. and they're going to have the ability to connect. And then on the other side, we're going to bring to them, to those 3 communities, things that we have learned and things that we have changed. So we launched our new website on April 1st. And it's been just like any other business thing. It hasn't been perfect every single day, but for the most part, it's been really great. And we're still learning things. But right now, those 3 newspapers do not have an active website with an e-edition like we have. That will be eventually coming to them. So like we can bring some of the things that we do here to them. Some of the commercial printing things we do, like business cards, brochures, flyers, banners. There's just so much that we can do that maybe isn't an option for them right now. There may be other areas in their community, businesses that do some of the things we do, and that's great. We want to support them. But for the things that aren't offered in those 3 communities, we want to be an avenue for that.
There's no question this has been a process, and it will continue to be a process, maybe even for another year. But and there's speed bumps along the way. Just earlier this week, we hit a speed bump with a bank. Talk about that process, and because it's fun and frustrating at the same time.
It is. I think there's a lot of times where I have to laugh, or you'll see me laugh, and I have to laugh because if I don't laugh, I'll cry. And it's not that I'm crying because it's sad or like. It's just that when you purchase a business, not only are we purchasing a business, but we are purchasing a business in 3 different towns. So essentially, it's like purchasing 3 businesses. There's employees in 3 different towns. There's 3 different city councils. There's 3 different mailing lists. There, and there's between working with the buyer, working with our financing, working with postal because our business is different in that way. Working with all the computer programs to make sure everything works together, which it doesn't right now, and that was like a hiccup. There's so many moving parts, and they all have to come together to make that wheel turn. And there are days where they're butting up into each other, like, hey, we need this from this person before we can go forward with that. Oh, but we need that before we can go forward with this person. There's just so many moving parts that there are plenty of days that I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and not making any progress. And then there's other days where I figure something out and it's like, oh my gosh, I can take that off my list, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but when your list to be able to make this transition happen is 2 pages in a notebook, everything that comes off feels like a marathon has been run. But the reason that we're doing this and the reason that like we have to make all these pieces happen is to make that transition as smooth as possible for the readers, for the advertisers, for the employees. And there are things that we could do differently, essentially that we can be like, well, we'll just figure it out when we are officially taking over on January 1st. And you guys will just have to do whatever we tell you to do come January 1st. Like, we can do that. And businesses do that. But that is not a benefit. Like, for us, we don't feel that's a beneficial way to handle this. So that makes it hard. But yeah, we are working with 3 different EDAs. We're working with employees in 3 different locations. We're working with 3 different renting 3 different buildings. And then you throw in things like the Minnesota Family Medical Leave Law that changes on January 1st. So there's like just regular business ownership stuff that comes into play on January 1st that we're also having to wrap up into this pretty little package. And we're also putting out a weekly paper every single week.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
So we don't get to stop doing our job.
Mm-hmm. Just like in COVID, we didn't stop. We couldn't stop. So let's wrap this up with, I introduced a segment about a month ago and started with the coaches. It's our final segment. It's called Best and Worst. I don't know if you know about this or not. What's the best part of your job and what's the worst part of your job? Coaches love this one.
Oh.
Best part.
My
You
best
want to start
part.
with the worst? It's up to you.
I'll start with the worst.
Bad news first.
Yes. And it's kind of twofold. I say the worst part of your job is in this industry when we're literally just doing our job and we are kind of taken to the coals for it because somebody doesn't want something in the paper, somebody doesn't want something reported, or somebody isn't happy with something that was sent to us that, we had to print, different things like that. Or we have to report on court cases and stuff. Like, there is some really hard stuff that we do, and we're doing our job we don't make the news, we report the news, but we can be personally, and we have both been very personally attacked for doing our job.
Yeah, I've lost relationships.
Yeah, we have former friends that don't want to talk to us because we, their name was in the paper for something they did, or that we wrote something they didn't agree with, and that's really hard because if we go into other businesses and we have a bad experience, we don't get to just write them off. I think people really have, and people in this day and age, they don't really seem to have a problem ripping people apart. I think we're not nearly as kind as we used to be. So I'd say that's the worst part, but we also get the other side of it. We get people that do appreciate it and do see it and stuff. It's just, we've learned you have to build really thick skin.
Well, I built thick skin when I was 20 years old. But, the thing about, rumors and Facebook, I was jumped by a person after a story came out about him or her, I won't say what. And I told this person, half the town knew about it before the paper even hit the stands, before I knew about it. And I think we actually did them a favor because the stuff going around town
wasn't true.
It's the telephone game, and all of a sudden this happened and this happened when it really didn't.
Yep.
What we report is what we get from the cops, the sheriff's office, the county sheriff.
Or we do investigate
police.
things too. Like we actually ask people questions. We don't put, my neighbor's friend's nephew's sister-in-law told me that.
There's no rumors in our paper.
Yeah.
There's no fake news in our paper.
Yeah.
It's all legit. All right, now the fun part, the best part of your job. And I'll ditto, I'm not going to do this to me because I'm the host,
What?
I don't have to. I'll ditto the worst part. So
Yeah.
you shoot with the best.
Okay. My best part is double full too. And people will joke about this, but there are days where we could kill each other. And it's probably good that our offices are on the opposite sides of the building. I do enjoy working with you, and I think we have a really good working relationship. Like most people could not work with their significant other day in and day out, especially because our jobs are 7 days a week and very high pressure. Like we have deadlines we have to hit, we have things we have to deal with. So I think that's a really awesome part. And I mean, even on days where I'm like, oh my God, can we just get away for one day? I do really appreciate how embedded we are with the community. I just feel like I love being part of Tracy and truly being involved in the community and seeing all aspects of it. We're not just watching sports. We're experiencing the arts. We're seeing what the kids are doing. Like we really have a good feel, and we get to see how awesome the community is. We see things that people don't.
I have transformed her from a knight to a panther. That's high praise from a RTR graduate. Thank you, Tara. We are off the hot seat.
This week's podcast was brought to you by Curry State Bank. Curry State Bank is personalized banking in your neighborhood. With locations in Curry and Okabena, as well as online banking, Curry State Bank makes it easy to meet your banking needs. Stop in one of the offices today to let them help you meet your banking goals. And happy holidays from Curry State Bank.